Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to Transfer Weekly here on FIA Series. We have a brand new episode for you, lots of transfers to talk about as we go into the new year and get closer to the season. And with that, we bring a brand new guest as well. This is episode number 6. A familiar face with us. You may have seen him a couple of times. Tyler Foster, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. But welcome to Transfer Weekly for the first time, Alex Brundle. Of course, Alex, you would have seen him on track, but also heard his voice commentating on Formula 2 and Formula 3 as well. Alex, you are the perfect man to get on this show. Thank you very much for coming on.
Well, I've loved commentating on those two championships throughout last year, not least alongside you, Chris. So it's been a great privilege to watch young drivers continue to battle for their seat in Formula 1. And this part of the year is the part of the year where so much of that battling is done off screen. So much of that interest happens in the boardroom of these various teams.
Well, let's get started then with some big news that came in Formula 2 at the back end of last year. We're going to be covering all the transfers that happened when we released episode 5 up until now when we record on the 6th of January. So we're going to kick off with arguably the biggest news that came since then, and that is that Manuel Correa will return to Formula 2 full-time, joining the Van Amersfoort racing team. He goes back there for a full season for the first time since 2019. Alex, I'm going to come to you first. Of course, you've followed his career quite closely in the commentary booth as well, and you were there commentating when he got back in a Formula 2 car at Abu Dhabi. What do you make of this news? I mean, this brings a smile on everyone's face, I'm sure.
I mean, what a story, what a journey for this young man after that horrible accident in 2019. I read an article about him as we were looking at, as this news came out, that said, was him basically saying, I want to be back in a Formula 2 car by 2021. Well, that just shows how much of a journey this has been. A couple of years in a Formula 3 car, back to the Formula 3 podium last year in Zandvoort, a little cameo at the end of last year with Van Amersfoort Racing, and then joins full-time for 2023. I'm sure everybody has a special place in their heart for his journey, and it's going to be really exciting to see what he can achieve behind the wheel of a Formula 2 car again.
Tyler, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. Of course, you are the man that covers Formula 2 for us here at FIA Series. You even predicted the grid as well, so I don't know how this fell in with those predictions, but he's going to be racing alongside Richard Verschoor, so that's going to be a hell of a lineup, those two. Van Amersfoort, a new team onto the grid last year, so what do you make of that? He's going to be in very safe hands there.
Certainly. I mean, he's a competitive driver. People might be under the illusion that because of what he's gone through, and also because of the name that he carries, he's done some endurance racing recently as well, quite successfully, I may add, that he's been given this, as sort of a backhander. This is certainly not the case. And this is a driver who got 2 podiums in his rookie year, half of a rookie year, back in 2019. So he's earned, the opportunity again to prove that he has still got it. And going with Van Amersfoort, a team who last year I thought were exceptional in their first year, a team who obviously have so much experience at the FIA Series level, and to step up to F2 and make such a start straight away in your first year was very, very impressive. I think that this year they've got an even better driver lineup, as you mentioned, with Richard Verschoor and obviously Correa as well. I think that's going to be formidable. Verschoor, maybe an opportunity to prove himself. And, if you want a teammate in Correa, who's obviously got that experience, but coming back into F2, Verschoor is someone who himself has got a lot of experience. So I think that as a team, they're going to work really, really well together. I hope that, as Alex mentioned, that this journey that he's been on comes full circle, and that he, can hopefully maybe get back on the podium. And, you never know with these sort of things what can happen. But, he'll be carrying that legacy forward with him for next season. So excited and best wishes for him.
Yeah, I just want to pick on something you said there, Tyler, and come back to you, Alex, very quickly before we move on. I was, of course, commentating with you at that Zandvoort meeting when he did get back on the podium in Formula 3. And I remember you said something where this was the end of the journey and the start of a new one for him. And I think this is probably that moment for Correa, isn't it, where he is now starting a new journey. He got a podium in F3, and I guess now is the goal for him, do you think, to go and achieve the same thing in Formula 2?
Well, motorsport was ever thus, wasn't it? You get to the to a certain place, you win a championship, and then guess what? Or you take a podium. Guess what? There's another podium to achieve. There's another championship to try and win. I think it's worth saying it's a really big moment for Van Amersfoort Racing as well. You know, they bounced between 4 drivers last year. Sometimes didn't get the results they were looking for. I'm hoping that with Correa's little bit of experience, Richard Verschoor's race-winning ability, which we've seen throughout the last year, and both drivers' experience, it'll bring a little bit of stability to Van Amersfoort Racing, which is something, you know, there are two sides of these coins. Firstly, you've got to consider the move for the driver, but you've also got to consider what that move means for the team. And I believe this move means experience and stability for Van Amersfoort.
I think very well said, and we wish both the team and Juan Manuel Correa all the best of luck. Right, let's step down from Formula 2 to Formula 3. One of the big moves that happened there was for ART Grand Prix. They signed Kailyn Frederick for this season. He makes the switch across from high tech. It's going to be his 3rd season now racing in Formula 3. So this the time where you feel he's going to be going out to try and challenge for that championship. Not the best of seasons for him last year, but with ART, could this be his year? Alex, I'm going to come to you for this one. You followed him quite closely over those last couple of seasons. I mean, this is a guy that's gone out and won a British F3 championship. Do you think Kailyn, over what he's learnt over his seasons, can now go out and win something this year?
The seat he's got there is really a hot seat at ART, next to Gregoire Saucy, who, of course, we've discussed so much, is a kind of slow burn talent with the amount of experience that he's got in the cars. It's a lovely seat to have. Sebastian Philippe, the team principal there at ART, will take absolutely no nonsense. Frederick got a lot to prove, was fastest on, I believe it was day 1 in the afternoon of the testing back in Jerez. Bit of a sideways move. It's the year he really needs to prove himself. 3rd year in the category is really, it's the end of the line, isn't it? In terms of Formula 3 drivers. I think it's one of the best seats in the house. You become, with the connection to Fred Vasseur, potentially almost a pseudo Ferrari Academy driver, arguably. It's the team that took Victor Martins to the Drivers' Championship. So it's go for broke and nothing to lose, isn't it, for Kailyn Frederick? And we'll find out what he's made of.
We could argue he's filling that role now as well, couldn't we? Greg was going into his 2nd year. He's a FRECA champion, and then we're going to come to the next driver next. But yeah, we could argue that. So let's see if he thrives on that pressure. Let's stick with ART then and go to the 3rd driver that's going to complete that lineup, and that is going to be Spanish F4 champion Nikola Tsolov. He's going to complete the lineup alongside Gregoire Saucy and Kailyn Frederick at ART GP. Tyler, I'm going to come to you for this one. I mean, he absolutely blitzed the Spanish F4 championship last year. He won it by over 100 points. I think he was only off the podium 3 times, won over 10 races. This is a really hot talent. I mean, he was very quick in testing as well. What do you make of his chances going into this season?
Well, as we just spoke about with the ART lineup, I think it fits in really well. You've got 3 drivers now with Saucy, obviously Frederick, and now Tsolov, who fit in different aspects of their experience. You've got a 23-year-old in Saucy, a 20-year-old in Frederick, and then a 16-year-old, just turned 16 as well over Christmas.
Wow.
And to have that sort of balance within a team like ART, I think last year you had 3 drivers who they were sort of all unsure as to what their roles were, other than obviously Martins, who was, blitzing it. I think Saucy was almost a disappointed figure with last year. And this year, I think the fact that they have got that more spread out team in terms of, or driver lineup in terms of experience will certainly help them. Tsolov is a driver, as you mentioned, he dominated Spanish F4, and Spanish F4 as a series has risen over the last few years. It's not the series that it was back in 2016-17, where it was looked down upon. It's now a series that people actively look to go to when they want to progress their career. And even though the driver talent might not have been as strong as, say, an Italian F4 or something like that last year, he certainly proved that even with the driver lineups that were in Spanish F4 last year, that he could go out there and be the best of all of them, and at such a young age. So he has the talent. The question is now obviously stepping up and adapting to that. But when you're in the hands of ART, you've got all of the equipment at your needs to go out there and improve yourself. So I think the thing is for him is not to have so much pressure this year. Go out there, got a good performance next to those two teammates who are more experienced, learn a lot. And then you never know, you could be looking at someone who in a couple of years himself in Frederick's position might be a title contender then.
Yeah, certainly a very exciting talent, one to keep an eye on, that's for sure. Let's then talk about another feel-good story, I think we could say, within Formula 3. They are all good, of course, but another one who's had to fight off some things over the last year or so, and that comes at MP Motorsport, who have signed Johnny Edgar. A very exciting signing for them. He's going to be under new management this season as well. Johnny Edgar, he tested with them at Jerez. Of course, he had to miss a couple of rounds last season after being diagnosed with Crohn's disease, but when he came back, he scored loads of points. He had a run of top 5 finishes. I think it was 4 in about 6 races. So really good stuff from Johnny Edgar. And that, I think, is what got him this seat at MP Motorsport, who did go out and get a couple of wins last year. Alex, what do you make of this one? I mean, Johnny, of course, Red Bull Junior last year at Trident, had to miss a couple of rounds. At MP Motorsport, do you think he fits in well there?
I think he does. One of 13 now Red Bull Junior drivers. I mean, he's got some competition. The first thing to say is anybody who has come into contact in any way, and I hope to goodness that anybody listening or viewing doesn't, because Crohn's disease is an awful and challenging disease. I have several friends who have been unfortunately in contact with it. So to be racing under those pressures and strains, not least performing in the way that Johnny Edgar has through the last year, is incredibly impressive in itself. 12th in the standings last year. He's another driver, taken all the health issues and the impressiveness of racing under those conditions aside, in the harsh way that motorsport is. He's a driver that needs a strong season. MP, 4th in the team's championship last year. They're not the force they were in Formula 2. They're a strong team in Formula 3. I think the thing for Johnny Edgar is if he can make that work, what he knows is he's got a potentially championship winning Formula 2 seat that he kind of has first call on as a potential MP Motorsport graduate, as somebody who works with the team. And I would imagine that will be the aim for him, to try to move forward into what is a championship winning F2 seat with good results behind him.
Yeah, it's definitely a good move for the future. He joins Mari Boyer there, who's going to be stepping up from FRECA. So a great teammate there from Mari to learn off. And we wish Johnny all the best of luck. Right, let's go from another new driver that's going to be coming in. We've already spoken about Nikola Tsolov, who's going to be coming in as a rookie. Another one comes in at Van Amersfoort, and that is going to be Tommy Smith. He's going to be stepping up from the GB3 Championship. He raced in FRECA the year before that. Now Tommy Smith moves up to Formula 3 and does so with the Van Amersfoort team. Tyler, I'm going to come back to you for this one. I mean, he had a couple of podiums last year in FRECA, had a bit of a tough season. What do you make of his chances at Van Amersfoort this year? Certainly, it's going to be a bit of a learning year for him.
Yeah, well, he has that experience, which is, I think, the thing that you need to go back to when you talk about someone like Tommy, a 20-year-old going into quite a big step up. We talked about Spanish F4 to the F3, and that not being so much of a big step anymore. When you haven't performed haven't performed particularly greatly in GB3, finished 19th overall, to then step up to F3, that is a big ask. And the one thing I guess to talk about with Tommy is that he's going to Van Amersfoort, and Alex mentioned about how MP Motorsport, F2 to F3 are not the same team, but they're still competitive. Well, VAR, you could argue, are as competitive in both F2 and F3 as they proved last year. Franco Colapinto with VAR was exceptional, and I'm not comparing Tommy to Franco, but I'm saying that he's gone to a team that are capable. He has got the ability to go out there and improve. And if he can make that early season improvement quickly, then you never know. By the midway point of the season, by the end of the season, there could be enough progression there, which you could say maybe another F3 season down the line. I think for him, it's a case of, enjoy the season as much as possible. He's always a fun chap to have around the series, so that'd be fun to have for that sake. But for him, let's hope that he can get to grips quickly and look competitive in what is quite a competitive team.
Yeah, he was really great to have around the FRECA paddock. I know he's got a really good relationship with Jack Doohan as well. You might have seen him if you were watching the Spa round. He was there actually celebrating with him when Jack came into pit lane. So might be able to take some advice from him. Okay, let's go to another team then. We're going to go to another team that signed their first driver for the season, and that is British team Carlin, who have signed Hunter Yeany. We has raced in the last couple of seasons, came in at the back end of 2021. Did last season, did have to miss a couple of rounds due to injury. Now he switches over to the Carlin team for this season. Alex, what have you made of Hunter from what you've seen of him so far over the last couple of seasons? And what do you make of his chances down at Carlin? I know it's been a tough couple of seasons for them.
Yeah, it has been a difficult couple of seasons for Carl. I mean, only 2 podiums last year with a car in the hands of O'Sullivan. But I think Yeany himself has had a broken season as well. But when you listen to what Trevor Carlin has to say about him, I think they're in a similar place to the place, actually, funnily enough, where they were when I joined them back in 2012, goodness it was, that basically they've not had the results, and they're now looking to really invest, I think, in some drivers with experience in the championship. You talk about Hunter, he did a little cameo with Campos, didn't he? And then a full season with Charouz. He's got some results behind him, and as everybody says, and I think as everybody accepts, the results haven't really shown his ability behind the wheel of the car, because he's having things like injuries that are delaying his seasons and so on. Time will tell, but I sense the beginning of a bit of a killer Carlin lineup, which involves Trevor investing to get the team back to where it needs to be. Their view always at Carlin is you need to be winning. If you're not winning, you need to sort it before anything else happens. And I think that's what we're going to see with their lineup this year.
I mean, it's just staying with you there, Alex. It's the only real hole in their whole organization, if you like, because in Formula 2 they had a fantastic lineup. I mean, personally, I thought they were going to go out and win the whole thing, and in F4 they've really got it nailed as well. In British F4 they always do it absolutely fantastic. So what do you think's missing in F3? Is it just a case of getting the drivers up from F4 and into F3, do you think?
I think that the margins are so fine in F3 that you can go really from the top to the mid pack or the top to the bottom very, very quickly indeed. I think they've missed the talent behind the wheel this year, frankly, in F3, which is potentially a harsh thing to say, but I feel like it's only really been Zach who's been up front delivering the goods. I totally agree with you. Moving both of their Formula 2 drivers had a run in a Formula 1 car. One of them will be in Formula 1 next year, by hook or by crook. All of their the young bucks in their F4 programs are delivering. They need to, and I think they've recognized they need to put some talent in their Formula 3 cars. And I think it's a question of making the numbers work, honestly, for these teams. Formula 3 now heading off around the world, even still more, budgets ever increasing. And I do think there is a struggle to get talent in the cars and also get the cars funded with costs ever increasing, which could be the battle that they're fighting in their mind now over the winter.
Well, who knows? It'd be interesting to keep an eye on that one. Hunter is the first driver to be announced by them, so we'll keep an eye here on Transfer Weekly as to who comes in next. Right, let's quickly cover off Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, known as FRECA, of course. 2 signings happened there, one coming in just before we recorded this, and that is that Joshua Duerksen, who finished 14th in the championship last year, is going to be staying with Arden Motorsport for a second season. He was one of the top running rookies last year, had a good haul couple of points finishes as well. A best finish of 6th place and got a rookie win right towards the end of the season. Tyler, quickly, what's your thoughts on this one? I mean, it was a good season for him last year. Arden are knocking on the door of race wins, aren't they, and podiums. Do you think this is going to be a breakthrough now they've kept Joshua in the seat?
I really do. I think that the progress we saw right at the second half of the season, as you mentioned, that rookie win, and the fact that he was consistent in that. If you look at the end of the season, of the last 6 rounds, or 6 races, I should say, he got 5 points finishes, and 3 of those were 6th place finishes, which matched his highest of the season. So he was right at the top of the peak of his performance right at the end of the season. So I think, considering that's always a good onus to go on and then make that further progression right at the start of the next season.
Yeah.
To be back at the same team as well with Arden, as you mentioned, they're making progress at the same time. And when you've got a driver and a team who are, both making the same progress right at the same point, then you know that you're sort of onto something there. It's not a fluke. I think for him, it will be really key to get off to a good start, to make sure that, don't have any of those gremlins early on in the season. But he's certainly someone that I think really is going to be another level this year to give with that Arden team.
Yeah, well, Alex Quinn and William Alatalo have proved that car can get on the podium. Most impressive performance was when he gained 17 places at Zandvoort, actually. Came from last to 18th. Not quite sure how he did it, to be honest. But let's stay with FRECA. We've had another exciting signing, this one. A new driver coming in to the series. KIC Motorsport announced their first driver for this season, and that is Maya Weug. She jumps up, the young Ferrari driver, jumping up from Italian F4, where she raced with the Iron Dames Championship last year, had a host of top 10 finishes, and she is now the 6th driver to be announced on the grid. Just very quickly then, Tyler, your thoughts on this one? I mean, she's an exciting young driver within the Ferrari setup. How do you think she's going to fare in the FRECA Championship?
I'm glad that she's had the opportunity to prove herself at FRECA at that level, and for next year, or for this year technically now. It's a case of you've got to wait and see, really, to judge on her. But I think, considering her performances last year in Italian F4, as you mentioned, she outperformed her teammate, even Dominguez, over the course of the season, scoring nearly double the amount of points that he did. So I think that in that case, when you talk about motorsport and in Italian F4, which is such an ultra competitive series, sometimes when you're not racing at the likes of Prema, right at the top of the series, you've got to just look at the person you're racing against. And if you're beating them, then all you can say is that perhaps that they're deserving of that seat. So I'd say, for any doubters, give her the time for this season to prove that she is capable of competing, and let her do the talking, because that's really what this is about. She has got the talent to be at this level. It's a case of whether she can make the further progress, continue to improve as she has been over the last 24 months. And as I said at the beginning, I'm glad that she's had the opportunity, and let's hope that she can go out there and get some good points on the board.
Oh, likewise. It's going to be very exciting to see her in the paddock next year. Now, of course, all the Middle Eastern championships kick off next week. We don't have time to go through them all, but you can catch up all the transfers on our social media. We've got around 18 drivers signed up for Formula Regional Middle East, over 40 signed up for UAE F4, which kicks off this week now, and Formula Regional Oceania, formerly known as Toyota Racing Series, as well, coming back. We'll follow that over the next few weeks. Very, very exciting. Alex, thank you very much for joining us on Transfer Weekly. It'd be great to have you back on at some point when we get a little bit closer to the season as well, when we've still got some F3 seats to fill maybe. But thanks very much for your time. Best of luck for this year as well. And we look forward to listening. You cover F2 and F3 again. It's going to be a fantastic season. But thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure to chat.
And Tyler, thank you very much as always as well. I'm sure we will see you again very, very soon as well. Thank you very much for your time as well.
No problem. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much for listening. Please do like and subscribe, leave your comments below, and make sure you join us at the very same time next week, where we will cover all the transfers from this week in episode 7 of Transfer Weekly. For now, though, it's goodbye.